You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange electricity in your chest when you wake up, that sense of something gathering just beyond the edge of your awareness, that pull that makes your breath catch in the middle of ordinary moments. Your body knows before your mind catches up. Your heart recognizes what your thoughts keep trying to rationalize away. Something is shifting. Something is preparing. Something inside you is being rearranged at a level so deep that words feel clumsy when you try to explain it to anyone else. But you don't need to explain it. You feel it. In the quiet moments between your daily tasks, in the dreams that wake you at 3 in the morning, in the sudden tears that come from nowhere, in the inexplicable peace that settles over you when everything should feel uncertain. This final week of November isn't just time passing. It's a threshold. It's an activation. It's the universe turning a key inside both of you, unlocking chambers of the heart that have been sealed, preparing you for something your soul has been moving toward since the moment you recognized each other. You know this feeling. You've been here before, standing at the edge of transformation, sensing that what comes next will change everything. And this time, this final week, the energy is different. It's not pushing you. It's not testing you. It's preparing you for union, for the meeting that happens first in frequency before it ever touches the physical world. Can you feel it? The way your entire being seems to be holding its breath, waiting, knowing, remembering something that hasn't happened yet but feels inevitable. You're not imagining this. This is real. This is your activation, and it has already begun. If you felt this activation moving through you, if you've sensed something shifting in your field this week, I want you to drop a comment below and share what you're experiencing, or simply type "I am ready for my divine union" to claim this frequency. And if these transmissions speak to the deepest parts of your soul, subscribe so you continue receiving the guidance that's meant specifically for your journey. There comes a moment in the twin flame journey when the energy stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a calling, when the confusion that once dominated your days begins to clear, not because you finally figured everything out, but because something inside you shifted into a frequency where clarity is natural, where knowing is effortless, where trust doesn't require proof. This final week of November carries that frequency. It arrives quietly, without fanfare, without drama, but with an unmistakable presence that touches every part of your being. You might have noticed it already. The way your sleep has changed, deeper or more restless, filled with vivid dreams that feel more like visitations than random images. The way your emotions have intensified, not in chaotic ways, but in waves that move through you with purpose, clearing old patterns, releasing ancient grief, making space for something new. The way your intuition has sharpened, speaking to you in whispers that land like truth in your body before your mind can question them. This is not coincidence. This is activation. The universe has been preparing you for this moment for longer than you realize. Every heartbreak that cracked you open, every dark night that forced you to find your own light, every moment of surrender when you finally stopped fighting and allowed yourself to simply be held by something larger than your understanding. All of it has been leading here, to this week, to this frequency, to this activation that is preparing both you and your divine counterpart for the union that your souls have been moving toward since before you took physical form. And here's what's happening in the unseen realms while you go about your daily life. The energetic field between you and your twin is being recalibrated. Old cords that carried pain, fear, and wounding are being dissolved. New pathways of light are being established. The frequency of your connection is being upgraded to match the timeline where union exists. Not union as a fantasy, not union as an escape, but union as a sacred meeting of two sovereign beings who have done their inner work and are ready to create something holy together. For the divine feminine, this activation feels like coming home to yourself. After months or years of focusing on him, wondering about him, trying to understand him, trying to fix the connection, trying to make it work through sheer force of will, something inside you finally exhales. You realize that this journey was never about getting him to see you. It was always about you seeing yourself, recognizing your own divinity, claiming your own wholeness, standing in your own power without apology or diminishment. This week, that realization doesn't just live in your mind as a nice idea. It drops into your body as lived truth. You feel different. You move through the world differently. The desperate energy that once colored your thoughts about the connection has transformed into something else entirely. Certainty, groundedness, a deep knowing that what is meant for you cannot miss you, and what you are meant for cannot be forced or manipulated into being. Have you noticed how your relationship to waiting has changed? You're not waiting anymore, not in that painful, suspended way that made every day feel like holding your breath. You're living, you're choosing yourself. You're building a life that feels full and meaningful, whether he shows up tomorrow or a year from now. This shift is everything, because this is what prepares you for union, not the version of you that needed him to feel complete, but this version, the one who knows she is already whole, the one who understands that union is not about filling an emptiness, but about two full cups overflowing together, the one who has stopped performing worthiness and started embodying it as her natural state. This is the frequency that calls union into form, not your longing, not your pain, not your willingness to sacrifice yourself, but your wholeness, your sovereignty, your unshakable knowing that you are the temple. And union is the sacred meeting that happens when he finally learns to approach the temple with reverence. And here's what's happening with him during this activation, whether you can see it or not. The divine masculine is being pulled into his own reckoning. For so long, he has been able to avoid, to distract, to convince himself that the connection wasn't real, or wasn't worth the discomfort it brought to his carefully constructed world. But this week, something shifts. The walls he built start to feel like prisons. The distractions lose their power to numb. The other relationships or situations he used to avoid facing the truth begin to reveal themselves as hollow substitutes for what his soul actually craves. He feels you differently now, not as a threat to his peace, not as a source of overwhelming emotion he doesn't know how to handle, but as a frequency that calls to something deep inside him that he has been running from his entire life. His own heart, his own vulnerability, his own capacity for a love that transforms rather than simply comforts. Deep inside, he knows, he has always known, that you are not just another person he met, that this connection is not something he can rationalize away or replace with someone easier. That his soul recognized yours in a way that bypassed all his mental defenses and touched something true. But knowing and being ready to act on that knowing are two different things. This activation is preparing him for readiness. It's dissolving the fear that has kept him frozen. It's bringing his own wounds to the surface so he can finally see them and begin to heal. It's showing him, through his own inner discomfort, that running from you has always been running from himself. And that pattern is exhausting him. It's not sustainable anymore. Something has to shift. And this week, that shift begins. You might sense this in your field. You might feel his energy differently, more present, more restless, more conflicted. You might notice an increase in signs and synchronicities. His name appearing in unexpected places. Songs that remind you of him playing at significant moments. Dreams where he speaks truths his waking self hasn't found the courage to voice yet. These are not random occurrences. These are evidence of the activation working in both of you simultaneously. Your fields are communicating even when your mouths are silent. Your souls are preparing for reunion even when the physical distance remains. This is how union begins, not with a text message, not with a sudden appearance at your door, but with this, a frequency shift that aligns both of you to the same timeline, the same readiness, the same capacity to meet each other as whole beings rather than wounded halves seeking completion. The activation happening this week is also clearing the collective field around twin flames. So many of you have been moving through similar patterns, similar pain, similar confusion. And the universe is responding to the collective call for clarity, for movement, for resolution. This final week of November marks a turning point for the entire twin flame collective. A shift from the old paradigm of chasing and running, of painful separation with no clear purpose, of connections that feel more like torture than blessing, into a new paradigm. One where both counterparts do their inner work simultaneously, where separation serves healing rather than punishment, where union becomes possible because both people have become ready, not because one person finally wore the other down. This is the timeline you're stepping into. This is the frequency this activation is attuning you to. But here's the truth that needs to be spoken clearly. This activation is not a guarantee that he will show up this week. It's not a promise that union will manifest in physical form by the end of November. What it is preparation. Sacred, necessary, irreversible preparation. The kind that happens in the soul before it ever touches the material world. Union has stages. And this week represents the beginning of the final stage. The stage where both of you are being aligned to the frequency where meeting is possible, where the wounds that would sabotage union are being healed, where the fears that would cause you to repeat old patterns are being dissolved, where the readiness that union requires is being cultivated in the depths of both your beings. Think of it this way. Imagine union as a doorway that only opens when two keys turn simultaneously. Your key has been turning for a while now. Every time you chose yourself over waiting for him, every time you set a boundary instead of accepting crumbs, Every time you felt the pain fully instead of numbing it or bypassing it with spiritual platitudes. Every time you looked at your own shadows instead of projecting them onto him. Your key has been turning, and this week his key begins to turn too. Not because you're doing anything to make it happen, but because the activation is working on him the way it has been working on you, waking him up, bringing him face to face with his own truth, preparing him for the meeting that his soul has always wanted, but his ego has always feared. You are not in control of his timing. You never were. And this activation is teaching you to find peace in that truth rather than resistance. Your job is not to manage his awakening. Your job is not to figure out how to speed up his process or break through his walls. Your job is to continue becoming the highest version of yourself, to continue healing your own wounds, to continue building a life that feels aligned and full, to continue holding the frequency of love, not as something you give away to someone who isn't ready to receive it, but as something you embody so fully that it transforms everything you touch. This is what prepares you for union. Not your ability to wait patiently while sacrificing your own needs, but your ability to live fully, love deeply, and trust completely that what is yours will find you when the timing is divinely correct. And here's the sacred paradox that this activation is revealing to you. The moment you stop needing union to feel complete is the moment you become ready for it. The moment you stop making him the center of your emotional world is the moment your energy becomes magnetic in a way it never was when you were chasing. The moment you release your attachment to a specific timeline is the moment you step into the timeline where union actually exists. This is not a game. This is not the universe being cruel or withholding. This is spiritual law. Union cannot exist in a frequency of lack, of desperation, of incompleteness. It can only exist in a frequency of wholeness, of abundance, of two people who have found themselves and are now choosing to walk together not because they need each other, but because they recognize each other as sacred mirrors and divine partners. This week is teaching you that distinction. It's showing you where you're still operating from need versus where you've shifted into wholeness. It's revealing the places where you're still trying to control the outcome versus where you've surrendered to divine timing. It's highlighting the difference between waiting as a passive, painful state and preparing as an active, empowering choice. Every moment you choose yourself, you are preparing. Every moment you honor your own needs and boundaries, you are preparing. Every moment you trust that your soul knows the way even when your mind is confused, you are preparing. This is the activation. Not something being done to you, but something being awakened within you. For those of you who have been in separation for a long time, this week may bring up grief. The grief of time past. The grief of hopes that didn't manifest when you thought they would. The grief of the version of yourself who believed it would be easier or faster or less painful than it has been. Let yourself feel that grief. It's not a sign that you're moving backwards. It's a sign that you're releasing the last layers of resistance to what is. Grief is a portal. When you allow yourself to move through it without numbing or bypassing, you come out the other side lighter, clearer, more present. And presence is the frequency of union, not the presence that obsesses over him, but the presence that is fully here in your own life, in your own body, in your own now. This activation is also bringing gifts. You might notice a sudden clarity about your own patterns and why you've been repeating them. You might have an insight about your childhood wounds and how they've been playing out in this connection. You might feel a release of old anger or resentment that you've been carrying, not because you're forcing yourself to forgive, but because you suddenly see the bigger picture and forgiveness happens naturally. You might experience moments of profound peace, where even though nothing has changed externally, everything feels different internally. These are the gifts of activation. These are the signs that you're shifting into a new frequency. Pay attention to them. Honor them. Let them guide you deeper into your own transformation. And what about the signs that he's shifting to? You might feel him more strongly in your energy field. You might sense his emotions, his confusion, his longing, his fear. You might dream of him more vividly, and these dreams might feel different than before, less symbolic and more like actual communication. You might notice synchronicities increasing, especially around numbers like 1111, 222, 717, or other sequences that have meaning for your specific connection. You might hear from mutual friends that he's been asking about you, or going through something that's changing him. Or you might hear nothing at all and simply feel in your bones that something is different. Trust what you feel. Your intuition is being sharpened by this activation. It's becoming a more reliable guide than your mind, which will always try to logic its way through something that can only be felt and known. Here's what you need to understand about his process during this activation. He is being confronted with everything he's been avoiding. His fear of vulnerability, his terror of being consumed by love, his conditioning that taught him to value independence over intimacy, his wounds around masculine worth and performance, his belief that he's not enough or that love requires him to lose himself. All of this is coming up for him now, and it's uncomfortable. It might even look like he's moving further away or going deeper into distraction. But what's really happening is that his soul is forcing him to look at what he's been running from. And you can't heal what you won't face. So this apparent regression is actually progression. It's the breakdown that comes before the breakthrough. It's the dark night that precedes the dawn. Your job is not to rescue him from this process. Your job is not to reach out and try to make it easier for him. Your job is to hold your own frequency steady and trust that his soul knows what it's doing, just like yours does. This is one of the hardest lessons of the twin flame journey. Learning to love someone deeply while also respecting their process enough to let them walk through their own fire. You cannot do his healing for him. You cannot shortcut his awakening. You can only do your own work and trust that when he's ready, when he's done the inner work that his soul is requiring of him, he will show up differently. Not as the wounded masculine who runs from love, but as the awakened masculine who has learned to stay, to feel, to choose love even when it's terrifying. This activation is preparing both of you for that meeting. The meeting of two healed, whole, sovereign beings who have done the work and are ready to create something sacred together. Not a relationship based on need or fear or filling each other's voids, but a union based on recognition, reverence, and the conscious choice to walk a path together that serves both your individual evolution and your collective mission. This is what twin flame union actually is. Not the fairy tale, not the completion of each other, but the conscious partnership of two people who have become whole on their own and now choose to intertwine their paths in service of something greater than either of them alone. And here's what this means practically for you right now, in this final week of November. Your focus needs to be on your own alignment, not on him, not on the connection, not on trying to figure out when or how union will happen, but on you. What does alignment look like? It looks like honoring your body's needs for rest, nourishment, movement, pleasure. It looks like speaking your truth even when it's uncomfortable. It looks like setting boundaries with people and situations that drain your energy. It looks like investing in your own dreams and goals rather than putting your life on hold waiting for him. It looks like cultivating relationships with friends and community who see you and celebrate you. It looks like doing the things that bring you joy, that make you feel alive, that remind you who you are beyond this connection. Every time you choose alignment, you are preparing for union. Every time you honor yourself, you are raising your frequency. Every time you live as the woman you want to be rather than the woman who is waiting for her life to start, you are becoming magnetic, not trying to attract him, but naturally embodying a frequency that union can meet. This is the work of this activation week, not obsessing over signs, not analyzing every feeling or synchronicity to death, but living fully, presently, as the sovereign being you came here to be. You will know this activation is working when you notice yourself caring less about the outcome and more about the journey. When you catch yourself going hours or even days without thinking about him, not because you're trying to detach, but because you're genuinely engaged in your own life. When you feel a deep peace that doesn't depend on him doing anything or being anything. When you can hold the truth of your connection and the truth of your own wholeness simultaneously without contradiction. When you stop seeing his absence as rejection and start seeing it as divine timing. When you release the need to understand everything and allow yourself to simply trust. These are the markers of activation. These are the signs that you're ready for the next phase. And the next phase is coming. Not because I'm making a promise I can't keep, but because this is how energy works. When you shift your frequency, your external reality must eventually shift to match it. It's spiritual law. It's quantum physics. It's the way the universe operates. You are not separate from him. You are not separate from the union you desire. You are energetically connected, and when you change your frequency, that change ripples through the field and affects him whether he's conscious of it or not. This is why your inner work matters so much. This is why your healing is not just about you. It's about the entire connection. When you rise, you create space for him to rise. When you heal, you shift the dynamic between you. When you embody your truth, you give him permission to find his. But here's the crucial piece. You cannot do this inner work as a manipulation tactic. You cannot heal yourself as a strategy to get him back. The universe sees through that. Your soul sees through that. And it won't work. The work has to be genuine. It has to be for you because you deserve to be whole and free and aligned regardless of what he does. When your healing is conditional, When it's a means to an end, it stays surface level. But when your healing is genuine, when it comes from a true desire to be free of old patterns and to live from your highest self, that's when the real transformation happens. That's when your frequency shifts in a way that changes everything. This activation week is asking you to be honest with yourself in ways that might feel uncomfortable, in ways that might challenge everything you've been telling yourself about your journey. It's asking you to look in the mirror without filters, without the spiritual bypass, without the pretty affirmations that sometimes serve as shields against the deeper truth. Are you doing the work because you genuinely want to heal, because you're tired of carrying these wounds and patterns, because you truly desire to be free from the pain and limitation that has been holding you back? Or are you doing it because you think it will bring him back? Are you meditating, journaling, going to therapy, clearing your chakras, and raising your vibration because you believe that if you just do enough, if you just become good enough, healed enough, spiritual enough, he'll finally see your worth and return? Are you choosing yourself because you truly believe you're worthy? Because you've genuinely come to understand that you deserve love, care, attention, and devotion simply because you exist? Or are you performing self-love as a strategy, posting the selfies, speaking the affirmations, taking the bubble baths, all while secretly hoping he's watching, hoping he notices, hoping it makes him jealous or makes him realize what he's missing? Are you surrendering to divine timing because you trust the universe? Because you've genuinely released the need to control outcomes, and you believe that what's meant for you will find you? Or are you just exhausted from trying to control things, calling it surrender when really it's just fatigue? Just giving up because nothing you've tried has worked, and you're out of options and energy. These questions matter more than you might realize. They matter because the energy behind your actions determines the results you create. They matter because the universe responds not to what you do, but to why you do it. They matter because union requires truth at the deepest level. It requires both people to show up authentically, without masks, without games, without manipulation, without hidden agendas or unspoken expectations. It requires a level of vulnerability and honesty that most relationships never reach. A willingness to be seen in your totality, in your messiness, in your humanity. And that level of authenticity starts with you being honest with yourself about your own motivations and patterns. It starts with you being willing to see where you've been operating from fear instead of love, from lack instead of abundance, from ego instead of soul. It starts with you being brave enough to admit that maybe, just maybe, some of what you've been calling healing has actually been manipulation dressed in spiritual language. That maybe some of what you've been calling self-love has actually been performance designed to get his attention. That maybe some of what you've been calling surrender has actually been passive resignation, because you don't know what else to do. If you discover that you've been doing the work from ego rather than soul, that's okay. Please hear this. That's not a failure. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's not evidence that you're not spiritual enough or conscious enough or evolved enough. That's awareness. And awareness is always the first step toward genuine change. You cannot transform what you cannot see. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. The fact that you can now see your own patterns, your own motivations, your own hidden agendas, that's actually a sign of tremendous growth. That's evidence that you're ready for the next level. Most people never reach this level of self-awareness. Most people spend their entire lives operating from unconscious patterns, never questioning their motivations, never examining the truth beneath their actions. The fact that you're willing to look, that you're willing to question yourself, that you're willing to admit that maybe you haven't been as authentic as you thought, that takes courage. That takes spiritual maturity. That's something to honor in yourself. Now that you see it, you can choose differently. You're not stuck in the pattern just because you've been operating from it. Awareness creates choice. Now you have the power to shift your intention. You can decide to do the work for real this time, for you, because you deserve to be free and whole regardless of what happens with him. Not as a strategy to get him back, but as a commitment to yourself, to your own well-being, to your own evolution. This is the maturity that union requires. This is the level of consciousness that separates true twin flame union from codependent fantasy. This is what this activation is cultivating in you. This capacity to be ruthlessly honest with yourself, to take responsibility for your own patterns, and to choose from a place of genuine self-love rather than fear or manipulation. As this week unfolds, you might experience waves of different emotions, and it might feel confusing or destabilizing. One moment feeling peaceful and certain, like you finally understand everything, like you've reached some kind of spiritual clarity where it all makes sense. The next moment feeling afraid or doubtful, questioning everything again, wondering if any of this is real, wondering if you've been fooling yourself, wondering if he's really your twin flame, or if you've just been holding onto a fantasy because you're afraid to move on. This is normal. This is completely expected. This is part of the activation process, not a sign that something is wrong. Old fears are coming up to be released, fears you've been carrying for lifetimes, fears about abandonment, unworthiness, not being enough, not being chosen, being too much, being too little. Old patterns are being highlighted so you can see them clearly and choose differently. Patterns of chasing, waiting, sacrificing yourself, making yourself smaller, performing for love, earning approval, abandoning yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Your nervous system is recalibrating to hold a higher frequency, and that process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it rarely is. When you've spent years operating at a certain frequency, when your nervous system has been conditioned to expect pain, abandonment, or inconsistency, shifting to a frequency of peace, worthiness, and trust can actually feel unsafe at first. Your body might resist it. Your mind might create doubt. Your emotions might swing wildly as old energy releases and new energy integrates. Be gentle with yourself during this process. Treat yourself with the tenderness you would offer a child who's learning something new and difficult. This is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. This is not evidence that the activation isn't working or that you're somehow failing at your spiritual journey. This is a sign that deep transformation is happening at the cellular level, at the energetic level, at the soul level. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without completely dissolving first. It literally liquefies inside the cocoon, its entire structure breaking down before it can reform into something new. You are in your own dissolution and reformation. You are in the cocoon. You are in the process of becoming something you've never been before. Trust the process even when it feels messy, even when you can't see the outcome, even when you wonder if you'll ever emerge from this darkness. You will, and when you do, you'll have wings. And here's something important to remember, something that might shift your entire perspective on this journey. Union is not the end goal. It's not the finish line where all your problems disappear and you finally get to be happy. It's not the reward you receive for doing enough healing work or being patient enough or spiritual enough. Union is a beginning. It's the start of a different kind of journey, one with its own challenges and growth edges, one that will require everything you've learned and more. The purpose of the twin flame connection is not to give you a perfect relationship where you never fight, never trigger each other, never have to do inner work again. The purpose is to catalyze your spiritual evolution, to help you become the fullest expression of your soul, to awaken you to your own divinity, to push you beyond every limitation you've ever accepted about yourself. Union is beautiful, yes. It can be the most profound experience of love, intimacy, and spiritual connection you'll ever know. But it's also intense and demanding, and will continue to push you to grow and heal and expand in ways you cannot imagine right now. So while you're preparing for union during this activation week, also prepare yourself for the reality that union is not an escape from inner work. It's an amplification of it. It's choosing to do your healing work with a mirror that reflects everything, with a partner who will trigger every unhealed wound, every shadow aspect, every place where you're still operating from fear or ego. It's choosing the path of accelerated growth, and that path is not for the faint of heart. This perspective is important because it helps you release the fantasy and embrace the truth. The fantasy that twin flame union is some kind of fairy tale ending where you ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after without any more problems or pain. The fantasy that once you're together, you'll finally feel complete, finally feel worthy, finally feel at peace. The fantasy that he's going to save you from yourself, from your loneliness, from your wounds, from your life. The truth is different, and it's actually more empowering. The truth that you're not waiting for him to come back so your life can finally be good, so you can finally be happy, so you can finally feel like you matter. You're preparing to meet him as an equal, as a partner, as someone who has done her work, and is ready for the sacred responsibility of conscious union. You're preparing to stand beside him, not beneath him or above him, not completing him or being completed by him, but walking alongside him as a sovereign being who has chosen partnership from a place of wholeness rather than need. This is not about finally getting what you want, about finally having your desires met, about finally receiving the love you've been craving. This is about becoming who you're meant to be, about embodying the highest version of yourself, about stepping into your purpose and power regardless of whether he's there or not. And if union is part of your path, if it's written in your soul contract, if it's aligned with your highest good and the highest good of all, it will happen when both of you have reached the level of consciousness and healing that allows you to co-create something that serves not just your own happiness, but the collective evolution. Union is not just for you. It's in service to something much larger, a frequency of love that ripples out and affects everyone you encounter. A template of conscious relationship that helps heal the collective wounds around love and partnership. So, beloved, as this final week of November continues to unfold, as the days move forward, and this activation continues to work in the depths of your being, in places you cannot see or measure, in the quantum field where all transformation originates, remember this: you are exactly where you're meant to be, not behind, not ahead, not off track or doing it wrong. Exactly where your soul needs you to be for this particular phase of your evolution. Every experience you've had, every tear you've cried, every moment of doubt and every moment of clarity, every heartbreak and every healing, every step forward and every perceived step backward, all of it has been preparing you for this moment, for this activation, for the version of yourself who no longer needs him to validate the connection, who no longer requires his words or actions or presence to confirm what she knows in her soul, who no longer needs external proof to trust what her soul knows, who has developed such a strong connection to her own inner knowing that she can stand in truth even when everything external contradicts it, who has learned to stand in her own power without apology or diminishment, without making herself smaller to make others comfortable, without hiding her light or her truth or her intensity, who understands that she is the temple, sacred and whole and complete in herself. And union is the sacred meeting that happens when two temples recognize each other as holy ground, when two sovereign beings bow to the divinity in each other. This activation is not happening to you as though you're a victim of cosmic forces beyond your control. It's happening through you and for you. It's the universe's way of saying, you're ready for the next level, you're ready for more. You're ready to expand beyond the limitations you've been operating within. You've done the work, you've walked through the fire, you've faced your shadows and integrated your light. You've sat with your pain instead of running from it. You've chosen yourself even when it was hard. You've stayed on your path even when you wanted to give up. Now it's time to step into the frequency where union lives, where it already exists, where it's already real. Not union as a future event you're waiting for, something that might happen someday if you're good enough, or healed enough, or lucky enough. But union as a present reality you're embodying, a frequency you're holding, a consciousness you're living from right now. Because here's the deepest truth, the truth that unlocks everything. Union begins within you. The moment you unite your own masculine and feminine energies, balancing doing and being, giving and receiving, action and surrender. The moment you marry your own soul, committing to yourself with the devotion you've been wanting to receive from him. The moment you become whole within yourself, no longer seeking outside yourself for validation, completion, or worth. That's when external union becomes possible. Not before. You cannot attract wholeness from brokenness. You cannot magnetize healthy union from a place of lack. The external union can only manifest when the internal union is already established. This week is showing you that you're closer than you think. Not necessarily because physical reunion is imminent, though that may be true. Not because he's about to show up at your door with flowers and apologies and declarations of love, though he might. but because you're becoming the version of yourself who is ready, who has done the work, the real work, the deep work that most people avoid their entire lives, who holds the frequency of union within herself, who embodies the love she wishes to receive, who understands at the deepest level that she doesn't complete him and he doesn't complete her. That two halves don't make a whole, but two wholes make something extraordinary. But together, when the timing is right, when both have reached the necessary level of healing and consciousness, when the universe aligns all the pieces, they create something that neither could create alone. This is the promise of twin flame union. Not completion, not filling the empty spaces, not fixing what's broken, but creation, co-creation of a love that serves as a beacon for others, that helps shift the collective consciousness around what partnership can be. Not filling voids, but overflowing abundance. Two cups that are already full, choosing to pour into each other, choosing to create an ocean from their combined overflow. Not losing yourself in another, not abandoning yourself for love, not sacrificing your identity or dreams or truth, but finding yourself more deeply through the mirror they provide, discovering aspects of yourself you never knew existed, being called into greater authenticity and expression through their presence. As this activation week comes to a close, and you move into December, as you transition into a new month and new energy, carry this knowing with you like a sacred flame in your heart. Something has shifted. You may not be able to articulate it. You may not be able to prove it, but you can feel it. Something has been set in motion that cannot be stopped, a momentum that has been building, a transformation that has reached critical mass, something that cannot be undone. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot unsee what you've seen. You cannot return to the version of yourself you were before this activation. You are not the same person you were at the beginning of November. Look back at who you were just a few weeks ago, and you'll see the difference. You have been transformed by this activation, whether you can see all the evidence yet or not, whether it's visible in your external circumstances, or still gestating in the invisible realms. And he is being transformed too, in his own way, in his own timing, through his own process that you cannot see or control or influence. He's on his own journey, facing his own shadows, doing his own work, being prepared by his own soul and the universe. The field between you is being prepared, cleared of old energy, old karma, old patterns that would prevent union from being sustainable. The frequency is being aligned, both of you being tuned to the same station, so that when you come together, you're meeting at the same level of consciousness. The path is being cleared of obstacles, of timing issues, of external circumstances that need to shift before union can occur. And when the moment is right, when both of you have reached the readiness that union requires, when every piece is in place, when the universe says yes, you will meet, not as two broken people trying to fix each other, not as two wounded souls seeking salvation in another person, but as two whole beings choosing to walk together in consciousness, in love, in service to something greater than either of you alone, in devotion to the evolution of your own souls and the healing of the collective consciousness. Until then, live, choose yourself, honor your journey, trust the timing, and know that every moment of this preparation is sacred. Every tear has watered the garden of your becoming. Every dark night has strengthened your inner light. Every moment of surrender has opened you to receive what your soul has always known was yours. You are ready. You are worthy. You are whole. And union, when it comes, will simply be a reflection of the union you have already cultivated within yourself. This is the truth this activation has come to reveal. This is the frequency you are being attuned to. This is the beginning of your divine union, and it starts with you.